Welcome to This Explainer. We've got absolutely massive breaking news coming out of the NBA playoffs today, and we're going to break down every single angle of it. The Minnesota Timberwolves just shocked the San Antonio Spurs in a Western Conference semifinals Game 1 thriller. I mean, fans were literally on the edge of their seats until the very last second. We're talking explosive offense, historic defense, and a storyline literally no one saw coming when those arena doors opened.
So the big question we've got to ask right up front, was this a massive upset or a narrow escape? Because when you see that final score, 104-102, you instantly know you're looking at an absolute nail-biter. Every single possession mattered. Every single shot carried the weight of the postseason. We had two entirely different game plans clashing on the hardwood, resulting in a finish that was honestly nothing short of cinematic.
Okay, let's dive right into this Game 1 thriller in the Western Conference semifinals.
The stakes literally do not get much higher than this. Game 1 really sets the tone. And man, this quickly turned into a true clash of the Titans. On one side, you've got the Timberwolves leaning on this massive late-game surge. On the other, the Spurs putting up a historic defensive wall. It was your classic unstoppable force meeting an immovable object, Minnesota trying to outpace and outscore, while San Antonio just tried to lock down the paint and completely suffocate their offensive flow.
Which brings us to the biggest shock of the night, the surprise return, an absolute momentum shifter.
To understand how the Timberwolves actually managed to pull this off, you have to look over at the sideline. Anthony Edwards made a completely unexpected return from injury. Coming off the bench, his presence alone was like a jolt of electricity that entirely changed the geometry of the court. You could literally feel the momentum swing the second his name was called. Nobody, and I mean nobody, anticipated he'd be cleared, let alone ready to step right into a high-stakes playoff environment and immediately demand that kind of defensive attention.
And this brilliantly illustrates the impact of that return. Just looking at the numbers, Julius Randle was an absolute powerhouse, leading the charge with a formidable 21 points, but right behind him, providing that critical, unexpected spark, was Anthony Edwards, dropping 18 points off the bench. Think about that for a second. 18 points from a player the Spurs probably hadn't even factored into their primary defensive game plan for tonight. That 1-2 punch was exactly what Minnesota needed to crack San Antonio's armor.
Now, a playoff victory is rarely just a two-man show, right? The Timberwolves got incredibly strong support from their supporting cast, especially Jaden McDaniels. Honestly, the Spurs defense probably felt like they were playing whack-a-mole out there. Every time they'd focus on Randle or Edwards, McDaniels stepped up right when the team needed to maintain that offensive pressure. It was this total combined effort. Randle's reliable scoring, Edwards' unexpected burst of energy, and McDaniels' vital support that allowed the Wolves to execute those clutch late-game plays. They found their rhythm exactly when the game was on the line.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is looking at San Antonio's historic defensive stand, also known as the Aliens' Resistance.
San Antonio mounted a defensive stand that felt, well, honestly, extraterrestrial. Even in a loss, Victor Wembanyama's night was nothing short of legendary. He formed an almost insurmountable defensive wall all by himself. He logged a triple-double. I mean, completely dominating the floor and proving he can control the entire flow of a playoff game without even having the ball in his hands. His rim protection was just terrifying, forcing the Timberwolves to constantly alter their shots and second-guess their drives to the basket.
And to really put into perspective just how dominant Wembanyama was, take a look at this number. 12. 12 blocks. That is a brand new NBA playoff record. Just let that sink in for a second. 12 different times, he completely erased a Timberwolves scoring opportunity. It's a total testament to his unbelievable wingspan, his timing, and just sheer determination. To set a playoff record in blocks while dropping a triple-double, that is the kind of individual performance that usually guarantees a win. But remarkably, even that wasn't enough to stop the late surge from Minnesota.
Which brings us right down to the wire, into the final seconds of this intense matchup.
We had the Timberwolves' relentless offense colliding head-on with Wembanyama's record-breaking wall. Entering the fourth quarter, it was a ridiculously tight defensive battle, but the Timberwolves found this extra gear, totally turning things around and outscoring the Spurs when it mattered most. The tension was just suffocating. It all came down to those final seconds. San Antonio has the ball, they find an opening, they set up for a three-pointer to win it all at the buzzer, and it misses.
The horn sounds, and that missed shot seals it. Final score, Timberwolves 104, Spurs 102. What a breathtaking finish to an incredibly hard-fought game. Minnesota actually manages to survive a historic, record-setting performance by Wembanyama, and it's largely thanks to that surprise return from Anthony Edwards and some incredibly clutch shot-making in the fourth quarter.
So, here is where we stand with the current stakes of the series.
The Timberwolves have stolen Game 1, taking a 1-0 lead. The pressure now shifts entirely onto the Spurs as they prepare for Game 2, which will also be played right there in San Antonio. The Spurs are really going to have to figure out how to capitalize on Wembanyama's defense while finding a way to shut down those late-game offensive bursts from Minnesota.
So I want to leave you with this to think about. Is this the start of a massive, series-defining upset by the Timberwolves, or was this just a narrow escape, and we'll see the Spurs regroup, adjust to Edwards being back on the floor, and bounce back with a vengeance in Game 2? The stage is beautifully set. Thank you so much for walking through this explainer with me, and we'll see you next time to break down the next chapter of this unbelievable playoff series.